Earlier today, John and I caught up with Dr. Ben Carson. He was in Overland Park, Kansas on his book tour. His new book out is called A More Perfect Union, What We the People Can Do to Reclaim Our Constitutional Liberties. We began by asking Dr. Carson how it feels now to be the brand new frontrunner in the latest Bloomberg Politics Moines Register Iowa poll.
It's much better than being in a different position. But I do realize that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And, you know, there will be ups and downs.
We were talking before we started about some of the other candidates who aren't doing as well. And you said something about what your attitude would be if you were down at 2% rather than being the front runner. What did you say?
Well, I would leave because, you know, to me this is really about the people and the will of the people. It's not about a position that I particularly want to ascribe to.
So if you drop down to 2% as a candidate, your attitude would be, why go forward?
Yeah. If other people were polling it much higher and there was a lot more enthusiasm about them, you know, I would say, okay, it's been nice. Let me go do something worthwhile.
Would you give that advice to the people who are 2% or less?
No, I'm just talking about what I would do.
I figured you'd say that.
Let me ask you a couple questions about Donald Trump, the person who you've just passed in our Iowa poll. He's not attacked you particularly aggressively in this campaign, unlike many of the other candidates who he has attacked pretty aggressively. Do you expect now that you're ahead of him someplace that he's going to start to go after you? And if so, what are you going to do about that?
Well, I guess it really depends on whether he's a gentleman or not. I guess we'll find out. If he does attack me, I will continue to talk about the issues. You know, I just really don't buy into the whole attack your, you know, fellow Republicans thing. I'm just not going to do that.
On the basis of what you've seen so far, do you think Donald Trump is a gentleman?
My personal interactions with him have shown him to be a gentleman. I think there's another element sometimes when he's on camera.
Let me ask you to name two issues where you differ on a matter of substance with Donald Trump, and explain your argument for your side of that position.
One would be on a taxation plan. You know, he feels that a substantial number of people should be excluded from federal taxes, and I do not. I feel that everybody has to have skin in the game. The other thing is on the illegal immigrants. You know, I would give people an opportunity, and it would be a defined period of time to register and to pay a back tax penalty and to pay taxes going forward if they have a pristine record. Right. And they could be guest workers if they were willing to work in the segment that we designated for them, and that would primarily be segments that Americans don't want to work in.
Right, so that'd be a path to legal status for people who are currently illegally in the country now.
It would be a path to legal status, not a path to citizenship, and not a path to voting rights.
Right, but definitely not deportation like Donald Trump suggests.
I just don't think that's practical, and I also think it would collapse the farming industry in a number of other places.
You just contrasted yourself with Mr. Trump on two important issues. I'm wondering about temperament. And how you contrast yourself with him on temperament.
Well, there's no question that I'm a relatively calm person. A lot of people think that I'm half asleep. I guarantee you I'm awake.
Although you did have trouble remembering what city we were in.
Well, if you were in a different city every day, you might have trouble with that, too.
I want to talk about how your life's changing now, because things are changing. One is the prospect of having Secret Service protection. Most people we've covered who get that, there's obviously an upside to it, and the agents do a great job, and they're great to have around for the obvious reasons. But are you worried about having your life change now, going to a movie, going to a supermarket, going out to dinner?
Yes.
What do you think? How will that affect you and your family?
Well, I mean, everything you do, you have to think in terms of this entourage that's going with you. And, you know, it changes the way that you're able to interact with people. I mean, I like people. My wife is a people person. And, you know, the fact that you can't, you know, interact with people the same way, that's a downside, there's no question. But by the same token, it's probably not all that great to get assassinated either.
How about being guest host on Saturday Night Live? Does that interest you?
No.
Why not?
Because I think the presidency of the United States is a very serious thing, and I don't even want to begin to put it in the light of comedy. Even though I know that the comedians will continue to make fun of me. That's what they do, and that's fine. But they can do that on their own. I will not cooperate.
One of the things that's going to happen as you become a front runner or co-front runner in this race is you're going to get a lot more scrutiny for pretty much everything. Noticed earlier this week in the New York Times, Pete Wehner, who was a former Bush advisor in Bush 43's administration and a kind of prominent conservative intellectual, took you to task for a lot of your analogies related to Nazi Germany and accused you of making imbecilic analogies and saying you didn't really understand the history. How do you respond when someone like Pete Wehner says that about you?
I would say I'd like to have him have that conversation with me in person, and I will show him exactly where he's wrong.
Right, so let me look. You've said before. I'll give you one example in this instance where you said that to try to understand what's going on in Obama's America, people should read Mein Kampf. What do you mean by that?
Well, you understand the philosophy behind the people who want to fundamentally change America. The other book that I said they should read is Rules for Radicals. And as you read these kinds of things, you actually can recognize some of the things that are going on in our society right now.
But just to be clear and specific about this, when you say that there are things that you observe in America today that are like Nazi Germany, what things are you pointing to?
What I actually said is that in Nazi Germany, most of those people did not believe in what Hitler was doing. But did they speak up? Did they say anything? They did not. And my point is, no, we're not like Nazi Germany. And I didn't say that we're like Nazi Germany. I don't want to get there. So what smart people do is they look at tragedies. They look at disasters that have occurred. They look at the inception of those things. And they recognize before they get there that you need to perhaps take corrective action to make sure that you don't get there.
Did you get a chance to read about or watch any of the Benghazi hearing yesterday? And if so,
I did.
What do you think Americans should have learned or did learn from the hearing with Secretary Clinton?
Well, I hope they learned that, immediately after the incident, the emails that she sent to her family and the conversation she had with the Egyptian foreign minister or ambassador were very different than the narrative that was portrayed to the populace.
And what's the significance of that?
The significance to that is that they're prevarication. That's what the significance is. Lying.
But do you think she's qualified to be president of the United States?
No.
Well, why?
Because I believe that she plays fast and loose with the truth. I think judgment also, having a private server and the possibility of compromising the security of our country after having been First Lady for 8 years, a Senator and Secretary of State. If you don't have enough judgment to know better than that, I don't want you with the keys to everything.
You're out selling your book on the Constitution, drawing huge crowds. Are people coming to ask you to sign their books because they love the Constitution and want to learn more about it, or because they love you?
I think a combination of both.
What do you think the odds are you're the next President of the United States?
Well, I'll put it this way. What I used to always tell patients when they would ask me questions like that, well, what's going to happen?
Right.
I would say, why guess when soon you'll know.
Our thanks to Dr. Ben Carson. Again, his new book is called A More Perfect Union, and it's out now.